I wasn't very outgoing in college. My grades weren't great. I wasn't part of a frat. I didn't have a girlfriend, and I wasn't really active in anything. Overall, I wasn't a very happy kid. That said, I'm not bitter about it. In my late 30s, I met an amazing woman who has always stood by me. Life is good now. We live together with our 2 cats, Lou and Raz, and I'm planning to propose soon. But back then, since I wasn't in a frat, those typical frat parties weren't really an option. Still, I wanted to enjoy myself. I mean, who wouldn't? My friends Bryson and Ian were in the same situation. Most weekends, we just hung out in Bryson's dorm, passing time. Even so, whenever an opportunity for a party came up, we took it. Most of the parties we managed to attend were off campus, not connected to any frat or the college itself. Once, we even drove more than an hour just to get to one. That shows how eager we were. One Friday afternoon, Ian messaged our group chat saying a girl he was talking to knew about a party nearby. Ian always seemed to attract unusual girls. You probably know the type. Bryson joked that he didn't want to end up at some weird death metal emo anime gathering, which I honestly agreed with. Ian insisted it would be a normal party and eventually convinced us. It wasn't like we had better plans anyway. Bryson got his brother Chris to drive us. Chris didn't drink and was fine with coming along, so everything seemed set. On the way there, Ian started complaining about the girl. He said she hadn't replied in hours, which wasn't shocking given how he was. He started doubting whether he even wanted to go, which felt like an overreaction. We were already halfway there, so turning back wasn't happening. We told him to get over it and not ruin the night. A little later, he said her profile had disappeared entirely. We told him he'd been blocked, as she probably went with someone else. He sulked the rest of the ride. When we finally arrived, we immediately felt like we'd made the right choice. The house was huge compared to the others nearby. Ian hesitated, saying he needed a drink first to take his mind off things. Bryson and I were fine with that, so we had Chris park a bit down the street and drank outside. We finished a few beers and watched crowds of people heading inside. It looked like a great party. Once Ian felt buzzed enough, we headed in. Right away, something felt strange. All the lights were fully on. Bright overhead lighting instead of the dim atmosphere you'd expect. People were dressed very nicely, not like a typical wild college party. It felt more like a formal gathering. The music was also unusual. No hip-hop or popular party songs, just instrumental, almost dreamy tracks with no vocals. It wasn't terrible, just odd. We looked at each other, confused. Ian didn't have any more details than we did. We wandered around, noticing plenty of alcohol, so we helped ourselves. After a while, I noticed people glancing at me and then quickly looking away. It happened often enough that I wondered if something was wrong with my appearance. Still, we were having fun despite the strange vibe. Well, mostly. Chris got bored and went back to the car to smoke. Soon after, 3 girls approached us. We weren't exactly confident guys, so that alone felt new. They started flirting almost immediately, very openly. They joked about an entry fee, and it turned out they were serious. They had a bottle of tequila, and we weren't going to refuse. Not wanting to seem awkward, we drank. After that, we stuck together, drinking, talking, and dancing. It was going well. At one point, I noticed a strange mark on Tina's neck. It was a thin green line, like it had been drawn with a marker. I thought about asking her, but decided not to risk offending her. Maybe it was a birthmark. Still, it looked unnatural. Once I noticed it, I couldn't ignore it. The color especially stood out. I tried to brush it off and kept talking to her. Later, I saw Bryson head upstairs with his girl, which seemed like a good sign. Soon after, Ian followed with his. I wanted to make a move with Tina, but felt too nervous. Even with alcohol, I was anxious. I told her I was going to the bathroom. The only bathroom I found was occupied, so I waited. Eventually, a tall older man in a white shirt and linen pants came out. As I went in, he bumped into me and just stared. No apology, just a blank expression. Then I saw it. The same green line on his neck. I asked what his problem was. He smirked and asked who invited me. Without thinking, I said Callista's name. He laughed softly, then suddenly became serious. He repeated her name and asked if I could see her anywhere. I didn't know what to say, so I shut the door. When I came out, I couldn't stop thinking about what he said and that mark. I started searching for my friends. As I walked, I paid attention to people's necks. I saw more green lines. Not everyone had them, but enough did to make it unsettling. I panicked and went upstairs. Thankfully, Bryson and Ian were coming down. I pulled them aside and explained everything, telling them we needed to leave. They laughed it off, saying I was drunk. Bryson teased me, thinking I was jealous. I asked where their girls were. Both said they were told to come back upstairs in 20 minutes. I tried to convince them, but they wouldn't listen. Then Ian turned his head, and I saw a red line on his neck. I shouted, which got their attention. Bryson had one too. Ian tried to dismiss it, but Bryson started to believe me. We decided to leave. Ian hesitated, still wanting to meet the girl. Then a man walked by with a green line on his neck, staring at us. That was enough. We ran out. It felt like everyone was watching us, but no one stopped us. We got to Chris and told him to drive. As we left, Bryson and Ian's phones started blowing up with messages from the girls asking why we left. We couldn't understand how they knew. They hadn't seen us leave. My friends blocked them. Everyone I tell this story to has their own explanation. I still don't know what really happened, and I'm not sure I want to know what could have happened if that man hadn't warned me. I'm a graduate student in civil engineering at Purdue University. I moved here a few months ago, and overall things were going pretty well. My classes were manageable. I had made a couple of friends, and I found an apartment that wasn't too expensive. The landlord gave off a weird vibe, though. I had a car and lived pretty far from campus, but I didn't mind the commute. The area itself was a bit rough, but I didn't really think much of it. I'm a guy in my mid-20s, so I figured I could take care of myself. Life was a little dull, but I was here to study, not to party. Everything felt normal until the day my backpack was stolen. I left it sitting on a table in a random lecture hall while I went to the bathroom, which in hindsight was a terrible idea. When I came back, it was gone. There were no cameras in that specific room, so there was nothing I could do about it. I was mostly frustrated. My wallet, keys, and laptop were all inside. I had to cancel my cards, get replacements, tell my landlord about the missing keys, and start looking for a new laptop. It was a huge inconvenience. It sucked, but I tried to move on. A few days later, I realized things were far worse than I thought. One evening, I got back from campus and found a handwritten note slipped under my door. At first, I assumed it was from my landlord, maybe about rent or something. I was completely wrong. When I opened it, it simply said, "I see you." No name, nothing else, just those words. It hit me immediately. Whoever took my backpack must have gone through my laptop and figured out where I lived. That alone was enough to scare me, but then something worse clicked. They also had my apartment keys. My skin started to crawl, and I kept glancing over my shoulder like someone might be right behind me. I rushed inside and locked the door. I had the deadbolt engaged, so at least I felt somewhat protected. Over the next week, more notes started appearing, all handwritten. They were always short, just unsettling phrases like, "I know what you did," or "watch yourself." By then, I was seriously shaken. I haven't done anything wrong, but if they had access to my laptop, who knows what they saw? I didn't know what to do. I wondered if going to the police would even help. I decided to wait a little, hoping whoever was doing this would lose interest. One night, while I was getting ready to sleep, something caught my attention. It was dark outside. My blinds were partly closed, but I thought I saw a quick flash, like someone taking a photo. I immediately shut the blinds completely, my heart pounding. When I checked, no one was there. After that, things escalated. I began noticing small changes around my apartment. Items seemed out of place. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I was just forgetful. My shoes would be somewhere different, or my coat would be on a chair instead of hanging up. Small details that I could explain if I tried. But then one day, I came home to something I couldn't ignore. My bed was stripped. The entire room was a mess. Drawers were pulled out, books scattered everywhere. It looked like someone had gone through everything. I called the police right away, but they were not much help. There was no sign of forced entry, and nothing appeared to be missing, so they said there was little they could do. I contacted my landlord and asked him to change the locks. He told me it would take at least 2 days to arrange. I begged him to treat it as urgent, but he brushed it off like it was nothing. I couldn't believe it. How could he not see this as an emergency? I kept trying to reach him, but eventually he stopped responding completely. That all happened yesterday. I barely slept last night, even though I had the deadbolt locked. I have been thinking about changing the locks myself, but I am not sure how to do it without damaging anything and getting charged for it. I skipped all my classes today because I am too afraid to leave. I am still here now writing this. Part of me is ready to confront whoever is doing this if they come back. If they accessed my laptop, they probably know my class schedule. I am considering hiding in the apartment and waiting, then catching them off guard if they try to come in while I'm supposed to be away. I think that is what I'm going to do. I will update when I can. I've been dealing with something that I can't just keep to myself anymore. I had recently ended things with my boyfriend of 2 years, Ben. It wasn't an awful breakup, but it definitely wasn't smooth either. We had been arguing for months, and deep down it was clear that things were not going to work. So when we finally split, I told myself it was the right decision. I blocked him everywhere and tried to move on. I attend Temple University and live in a small apartment close to campus. It is on the second floor of an older building, so I can hear almost everything happening outside. A few days after the breakup, I started noticing strange sounds late at night. Not normal city noise, something else. Footsteps, soft movement, like someone lingering right outside my window. At first, I assumed it was just my imagination. But after a while, I convinced myself it might be my ex. The reason I did not panic was because Ben had always been incredibly gentle and harmless. I mean that sincerely. He was not the type to do anything extreme or hurt me. I figured he probably missed me, so I chose to ignore it. I thought eventually he would lose interest. On top of everything, I was already overwhelmed from the breakup and had a major group project due. That project ended up being a key part of what happened next. I was in charge of editing everything and submitting it to our professor. I stayed up all night working on it, making sure it was perfect. Just before midnight, I sent the email. Feeling relieved, I went to sleep, trying to push aside everything else going wrong in my life. The next day in class, we were scheduled to present our video. My professor connected his laptop and opened the file I had sent. I was nervous, but also proud of our work. I had experience with Adobe software, and I knew our project stood out compared to others. Then the video began, and my heart sank. It was not our project. Instead, a blurry video appeared showing someone wearing a scream mask. They were not just sitting there, they were speaking. They said terrible things about me, my professor, even the government. It was vile. I cannot bring myself to repeat any of it. It was that disturbing. My professor let it play longer than he should have, probably because he was stunned. When he finally paused it, his face looked drained. I was completely frozen. I have never felt so humiliated. I could not move. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. Breathing felt difficult. I could feel everyone staring at me. The entire class had their eyes on me. I knew exactly what they were thinking. After what felt like the longest moments of my life, I snapped out of it and burst into tears, running out of the lecture hall. I felt a panic attack building. I thought about going home, but I knew I could get expelled if I just disappeared. So I waited outside until the class ended, then approached my professor. I begged him to believe me, explaining that I had sent the correct video. He listened and confirmed that 2 files had been emailed. The first was my actual project, and the second, sent later, was the one he played. Fixing things with the university took time and effort, but eventually it got resolved. The embarrassment, however, did not go away. It was obvious my email had been hacked, which was an even bigger issue. I changed my password and assumed I had just been unlucky. That was only the beginning. Less than a week later, I woke up logged out of Snapchat. That only happens if someone else signs in, which meant that account had been compromised too. I do not even want to think about what they might have seen. There was a lot on my Snapchat that I am not comfortable talking about. I went to the police and explained everything. Surprisingly, Ben agreed to be questioned. The police confirmed he was not responsible for the hacking. However, he admitted that after our breakup, he had posted some of my personal information on an online forum. He insisted he never shared my passwords, but mine were easy to guess, and I had made the mistake of using the same one everywhere. The police told me there was not much they could do. Ben was not directly responsible. That is when it really hit me. Someone else now had access to my private information. They could easily use it against me. I immediately updated all my passwords, but it might have already been too late. A few weeks passed and nothing happened. I thought maybe whoever was behind it got scared after I involved the police. I hoped it was over. It wasn't. One day, a random person added me on Snapchat, which is not unusual. But when I accepted, they began sending me photos. Photos of me. You can probably imagine the kind of images they were. I blocked them before they could say anything, but I knew what was coming next. I broke down crying. I have never felt so powerless. For about a week, different accounts kept adding me. I knew it was the same person each time. I refused to accept any requests, afraid they would try to blackmail me or demand money. This has been going on for a week now, and I have no idea what to do. There is no evidence, no way to track them. The police cannot help without more information, and even then, there is no guarantee. The worst part is that they know where I live, and likely much more about my personal life. If I keep ignoring them, I worry they might escalate things. They have already been outside my apartment. I would not be surprised if they went even further. I can only hope they eventually lose interest and stop. If anyone is listening, especially young women, please be careful about what you keep on your phone. I honestly do not know if this will ever end.